All right, my friends, welcome to the Christian Breathwork podcast. I cannot believe we're here. This is crazy. There's been so much that has happened to lead up to this amazing moment, and I am in such gratitude that you are listening to this episode. And I hope that this podcast episode and this podcast in general can encourage you, that it can help you strengthen your faith, and it can help you on your trauma healing journey. Those are my greatest goals and greatest desires, to serve you in this way, to encourage you in this way. And I hope that this podcast brings you lots of love and encouragement. My name is Zach Campa, and I'm a certified trauma-trained breathwork coach. And I have certifications in both breathwork and integrative somatic trauma therapy. And my mission is to help people find their true identity. What is your true identity? We'll explore that as we move through this episode and we move through future episodes. We'll explore this together and ask big questions and explore it with curiosity. And we'll talk about some of the science. We'll talk about some of the spirituality, both of which I absolutely love. And it's going to be a fun journey. So this is just the beginning. I also just wanted to share a little bit of my story and what led me to this moment. When I was 19, I was sitting on the beach with my mom, and I had just graduated high school, and my mom handed me the book, The Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown. If anybody's read Brene Brown, I know we probably have some Brene Brown fans listening to this podcast. A lot of people in my community are into doing the self-help work and doing healing work. And so I imagine you've probably listened to or at least heard of Brene Brown. She has a famous TED Talk on shame. Basically, that moment was the moment where I recognized, like, oh, I got a lot of stuff. I'm going to censor myself and not say the word that my brain is saying, but I got a lot of stuff. I got a lot of baggage. I got a lot of things that I got to look at under the hood of the car. And that was a huge moment for me. And that kind of led me into therapy. And when I went to college shortly after was kind of the time that I started to explore and unravel stuff and start to ask myself, like, who am I? What am I doing here? What led me to this moment? What was my conditioning growing up, and what's true? Like, what's my true identity, like I said earlier, and what led me to be this dude now? What were the factors that contributed to me becoming who I am now? And so I started to explore that as I got into school. Into college, I went to study musical theater, went to study acting. But when I was in school, I had a couple of big inciting incidents that happened. When I got to college, I started struggling with anxiety and depression for the first time in my life. I remember my freshman year at Ball State University in Indiana, waking up and feeling like there were weights on my chest for the first time in my life. Like it was impossible to get up and get out of bed. And I'd never experienced that before. My little brother had struggled with anxiety in high school, and I didn't really understand. And so I was dealing with depression and the fact that I felt that kind of weight on my chest. Like, how do I get up? How do I do this? How do I keep going? Being in the winter of Indiana after growing up in sunny Los Angeles, it was like, how do I do winter? How do I do college? How do I do life away from my family? And I had a pretty sweet childhood. I was really lucky and fortunate to have a great family and go to a really great school and to have a lot of amazing resources and tools and just a lot of joy and community. And so college was really hard, and I started to deal with anxiety, and I started to deal with just, I was just really struggling, feeling super anxious all the time. And then I transferred schools, like I said, to Baylor University. And when I went to Baylor University in Texas, had a weightlifting injury that led to me starting to deal with chronic back pain, which I still deal with to this day. So it's been 8 years of that, which is pretty crazy. And I also, at that time, got diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and OCD. And I remember a stretch of time in school where it was about 2 or 3 months where from the moment I woke up till the moment I went to sleep, I was struggling with crippling, intrusive thoughts about death, about sex, about shame-driven thoughts, fear-driven thoughts. It was a really, really challenging time. And I still had a ton of great relationships. I was really well loved. I had a lot of friends, and I was doing theater, and I was doing something I loved. And I think people wouldn't have known at the time, based on what they knew of me, that I was struggling. But internally, I was having an absolute battle. I was well liked and had a great college experience, but I was just battling. And so I took a 2-week break, flew back out to Los Angeles, and went to the OCD Center of LA. I did treatment there for 2 weeks, got on medications. And that was kind of the inciting incident of a lot more healing that started to happen as well. And as I got out of college, moved back to LA, pursued acting, I started dealing with really severe chronic pain. I think it was a compilation of the medications, a compilation of childhood trauma that hadn't been resolved, trauma that happened in college, trauma that happened after college. I started to become addicted to marijuana and addicted to nicotine, and was watching pornography and was struggling with just numbing out. And kind of like the modern millennial or Gen Z man that like plays video games and vapes and, is on their phone all the time and scrolls a lot and is questioning his why and is like, what am I doing here? Do I have a purpose? Am I living up to my potential? I feel like I'm not. And it was a really, really hard time. And then when I turned 25 during the pandemic, I had a profound healing experience. So I found breathwork. I had a friend that recommended breathwork to me. I was really hesitant and skeptical about it growing up Christian. I was like, what is this breathwork stuff? That sounds kind of woo woo. It sounds kind of out there. And I had a miraculous healing experience during the breathwork, which I won't get into too much. I'll tell you that later at another time. And maybe I'll do like a full my story episode or my testimony. But then I had another profound healing experience, which was really the catalyst for, because the breathwork initially was incredibly powerful. It was confidence boosting that first session. It was helpful for anxiety. My body pain went down, all this stuff. Anyways, and I stopped doing breathwork for a little while, but then there was a moment where there was one night I'd already done breathwork once. I cried out to God and I said, at this point, my chronic pain was at its absolute worst. I was having numbness in my extremities. I couldn't feel my bed when I would lay down at night, like my arms and legs. I couldn't feel my blanket. It was completely numb, and that was a horrible feeling. And so the numbness, and then there was tingling and pins and needles and burning. And at this point, I'd grown up an athlete. I'd grown up an artist and an actor and a dancer. So I had a lot of experience on my feet and love to play and love to dance and love to move my body. So I stopped moving my body and I was in all of this addiction. And one night I cried out to God and I said, like, have you left me? And I was just bawling in bed, just weeping. And then the next night, I just said, please, I need your help. The next night, I had a miraculous healing experience with breathwork. And this is not normal. I'm not marketing this or saying that this is what breathwork does for you. I had a very clear full body experience where I encountered the presence of God. And the best way I can describe it is I experienced an unconditional love, an unconditional peace, a profound sense of purpose that I had never experienced in my life. And yeah, I think I'll get more into details on what that was actually like later, because it's quite the story what actually happened. But I heard a very clear thought that I believe was the voice of God say, if you step first and you take your healing journey, your entire family is going to heal. And this is going to be the first step in the trauma healing journey. And I was crying like a little baby and I said, I'll do whatever it takes. And that was the start. And that was about 5 years ago. And I started doing breath work every day, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, sometimes an hour, and training, taking classes, studying with other people, reading books, listening to podcasts, doing breathwork all the time. And I fell in love with it. And that kind of led me to trauma healing work. And I found somatic work, which is just body-based work relating to the body instead of the mind. And it just was an incredible experience. And it was invigorating. And it was one of the most exciting journeys I've ever taken. And I just felt so alive and purposeful and passionate. And a couple of years ago, I moved in with my previous partner, which I'll share a little bit about. We started a brand doing this work. So I was doing the work. I was just coaching on my own. And then we started doing work together. And then we ended up separating. And so that kind of led me to what now is the Christian Breathwork Foundation. And I'll give my why in a little bit for why I created this, but we're here at the Christian Breathwork Podcast, the Christian Breathwork Foundation, and I'll share my why in a second. But yeah, I would love to just share with you first what the Christian Breathwork Foundation is. So the Christian Breathwork Foundation is a judgment-free space for believers and faith-curious friends of all backgrounds and beliefs to experience community, connection, and personal transformation. So what does that look like? Community, coming together with like-minded people who are driven towards their purpose and who are prioritizing and putting love at the center of their life. I heard a statistic recently that the number one indicator, and this is in several studies, for having a long life is having a sense of community. So I built out the space so that you would have a space. This is really the space that I always dreamed of, where you can have great conversations with like-minded people that are challenging and exciting and infused with passion, and you can hold each other accountable to a standard of love and of integrity and of kindness and of service. The connection, I look at it as connection to self, so to the body. This is something that growing up in the church, not a lot of people are comfortable with. There's a lot of judgment of our bodies, a lot of even self-hatred and hatred toward our bodies and condemnation of our bodies. So the connection to our bodies, to our nervous systems, which there will be a lot of science on that I'll talk about. And like, what is that? Like, how do our nervous systems affect everything? How do they affect our brain activity? How do they affect our thought worlds? How do they affect our digestive system, our immune system, our lymphatic system, all these things? How do they affect our psyche and just like our ability to connect with the world and others? So connection to the body, connection to other people, and also connection to God or a higher power or a creator or the unconditional loving force that is in everything. And then personal transformation, which is just a movement towards purpose. This is a space that is about personal transformation and stepping into your purpose and stepping into what I call, again, your true identity. That's it, a judgment-free space for believers and faith-curious friends of all backgrounds and beliefs to experience community, connection, and personal transformation. What's my why? So I grew up in the church and came to Jesus when I was 3 years old and had parents that were church planters. And my mom went to seminary. My dad still to this day works in Spanish radio and helped start the first 24-hour Christian Spanish radio station and has helped thousands and thousands of people find their purpose. Probably, honestly, probably millions of people is probably a more accurate number. He's had such a massive influence on the Hispanic people of Los Angeles and also just people in general. But yeah, I grew up and I went to Christian school. And so I was, taught a very specific way of looking at the world. And a huge part of my story was really adhering to that, being kind of a golden child and following the doctrine and the rules and doing everything I could to do my best to be a good kid and a good Christian. And then when I got into college and I was around artists because I studied theater, I saw how much resistance and even I'd go as far to say as hatred towards God that there was in the community that I was walking in. And I thought, because a lot of those people had those feelings toward church, I attributed a lot of those things towards God, a lot of the feelings that my friends had towards God. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, is this the community or the church that I grew up in or the religion that I grew up in that caused all this pain and that is patriarchal and misogynistic and homophobic and all these things, like, and all these people have experienced like this kind of horrible thing. And I was like, whoa, like this isn't who I want to be. That's not who I want to be associated with. I want to love people and I want to accept everybody as they are. And so that young 18 or 19-year-old wanted something different. And so I kind of deconstructed I still believed in God, still claimed to believe in Jesus, but I just kind of was battling with my faith through my 20s, a lot of my 20s. And then when I came to, by the time I got to 25 and had that big awakening experience I shared with y'all, I had that profound healing experience and encounter with God. And then after that, what kind of happened is I started to explore spirituality separate from Christianity. And so I looked into and studied other religions and kind of new age principles. So Buddhism and Islam and Hinduism and new age principles, like I said. And so I just started to look and see, like, what's the common denominator in all these. And I think I really wanted to be someone that didn't just adhere to something that I grew up being told was the right way to see the world. And in doing that, I experimented a ton. I tried psychedelics, I tried therapeutic modalities and went to different healers and all kinds of stuff. And it just kind of became this hamster wheel of pursuing healing. And it kind of almost became like an addiction, which is something that I witnessed a lot in my time living in Austin, Texas. Just seeing this kind of pattern of people around me just pursuing healing almost like a drug and trying to fix themselves. And I was like, well, this doesn't feel great. And also in the communities where I did psychedelics, there was a lot of darkness too. Like there were things I encountered that were intense and kind of scary. And the thing that was even scarier for me was there were a lot of people that were claiming like what they were doing was light and good. And I was like, something's off, something's off. So basically, as I got to the last, couple of years, I started to, the whole time I kind of was listening to sermons, still listening to worship music, listening to, still keeping one rope tethered to Jesus, to God, to the upbringing that I had, and just kind of like holding tight to that. I mean, like, okay, I know you're there. And also I just want to make sure that none of this other stuff is the truth or that there's not truth over here. And I did find there was lots of truth and lots of love and lots of great people. I'm not dogging any of those religions actually at all. I respect everybody. And I'm someone that believes that every single human being has innate value and deserves respect for whatever their beliefs are. But for me, what I found was those religions, those healing modalities, those practices, everything the psychedelics, it all became a dead end, and it didn't actually satisfy my spirit fully. And so I kind of came back to God in the last couple of years and just reaccepted Jesus into my heart and said, like, I want you fully. And then everything started to change. And these things that I've been running into with my chronic pain, mental health battles, sleep issues, addictions started to just fall away. And I couldn't deny it. Like there was this, and I didn't, and there was a part of me that, as to be fully transparent, that was like, dear God, like, don't make me talk about Jesus. Like I'll do anything and I'll love you and I'll pursue you, but I don't want to talk about Jesus. I don't want to talk about Christian-y stuff. I really struggled with church language, anything churchy or that even said God in it. Like I would immediately kind of tighten up, and there was so much trauma from growing up in the church and just all the stories that I'd made up about myself and things that I'd heard from people and the way I'd seen people treat others. I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't want anything to do with this thing. And so to come back to it was like, what? Like, how do I do this? And going back into church for the first time, it was like, what the heck? And so what I found was that this world that I kind of walked in, where I'd found breath work and this nervous system work, which is like, I recognized that the science of trauma healing and the therapeutic modalities that had started to really practice, where there was substantial science for how to heal trauma and heal the nervous system, was incredibly valuable and had helped me heal a ton. It helped me so much and helped me build more confidence, and it helped me feel safer in my body and helped me connect to my life and connect to a sense of purpose again. But without God, there was something missing, and the breath work and the healing work was all getting a little bit warped without that central element of God, and specifically of Jesus. And I was like, okay, so clearly something's working over here, but it's also missing something. And so as I came back to Jesus and really accepted Jesus into my heart fully as my savior and was unapologetic about that, which even saying that to me 2 years ago, I would have been like, who is that dude? I would have been like, that's insane. Like, there's no way that's me. I would have had a lot of judgment and a lot of confusion and been like, what? Jesus, really? That's the thing you're committing your life to? All I can say is that the transformation was self-evident and I couldn't deny it at all. Finding community and friends that I'd prayed for years, like just less anxiety. I mean, just so many things, like relief from body pain, like all the layers just started to fall. Traumas and habits and addictions and thought patterns that I'd had since I was like a kid, like starting to fall away, and God and Jesus just starting to get in the middle of that. And I'll explain more what that looks like later, because if you're not a Christian or if you've never heard that, it's probably like, what is this Zach dude talking about? Like, I don't even know what he's saying, but Jesus like healing this stuff. But again, this is the beginning of a journey, and so we'll talk more about it as we go, and I'm here to cheer you on along the way in that regard. But yeah, I mean, it was just surreal and I couldn't deny it. And so my why became, for building this thing, was like, I want to build a space because I've seen these kind of judgmental spaces. I've seen churches kind of do it in a way that is where there's a lot of judgment, and it's not safe to come as you are, and it's not okay to be a skeptic, and it's not okay to ask hard questions and challenge the status quo. And it's not okay to be struggling with certain addictions and habits and thought patterns. You're going to get judged and you're going to get cast out, instead of being loved and met with, all of you is welcome to the table, which I believe that's how God sees us. It's like, no matter who you are, where you've come from, what you've gone through, you're loved and you're welcome to the table. And so really this whole thing is about love for me. It's about loving others and learning to love your nervous system and your body. And I wanted to create like a trauma healing space, a foundation where we could kind of do some of the healing work, have cool conversations, come together in community, and learn to love better and serve better in the world. And what I found through this journey, y'all, I wasn't planning on saying this, but what I kind of found, and I feel like is the basis of the foundation, is that a lot of people are looking for purpose right now. And this might be you. You might feel close to it and you might feel far from it. What I boil it down to, and is at the heart of this whole thing, is that in myself and in others, I've seen a lot of people chasing purpose, that I talk to, so many people that I talk to, chasing a sense of purpose and a sense of meaning and value, whether it be through money, relationships, status, a job, jumping from thing to thing, just like I was, and then not finding that satisfaction in their spirit. Something's still missing. The words of Jesus, there's the Pharisees, religious leaders of the law, challenge him, and they're trying to trip him up and get him confused. And one thing that they say is, what's the greatest commandment of all? And he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. These are the two greatest commandments. What I began to recognize was that had to come first in my life, that I had to love God and love others first. It had to be about love. And then once that relationship was in place, once that love was at the center, then my purpose becomes an extension of that. And so people might hear that and be like, well, does love God just mean go to church and go to Bible study once a week and that's it? Go to a mosque or go to a temple or pray every day? What I would say to that is no. Loving God is building a relationship to the unconditional love, to the creator that made you and loves you and has a plan for your life and has a purpose for you. And then once you do that and you begin to prioritize that love and put that love at the center of your life, your purpose then becomes an extension of that love. So love is at the center of it all. It's the most important thing. It's how we're going to be remembered, how we love people, how we give to people, how we serve people, how we made them feel. I'm sure you've heard that said before. It's not about what you do, but it's how you make people feel. So people will remember you for how you loved above all else in this life. Now, what can that look like? The thing that's so exciting to me is that you have a unique purpose. That unique purpose is nobody else's. You're the only one that can live that out. And so from that love, instead of pursuing the money and the sex and the marriage and the job and the status and all that stuff, you pursue this love, and then this love kind of overflows from you and you give from this place and you serve. And so that's where the foundation comes from. It's like I found this love and now I'm here and I'm like, I just want to share this with people. I found trauma healing, and for me, helping people heal their nervous systems and heal their trauma and find their true identity is what excites me. And I also love to write, and it's not just about a job. It's about that love being an outpouring and just giving from that place. And so, yeah, so that's a little bit of my share kind of on what my why is. I wanted to build a space where we could experience that sense of purpose together. What is my unique purpose? What am I doing here? How do I contribute value to the world and leave an impact on this place? Because I get this amazing opportunity, this one life to give and to serve and to leave an impact. And how exciting is that? So that's a bit of my why and why I created this space. And so getting into it a little more, what is Christian breathwork? So I'm talking about the trauma healing and the breathwork. So I'm going to have opportunities to do some coaching and stuff one-on-one. But the main thing is going to be that I'm going to be doing a Monday night call, and it's a donation-based call. Everybody's welcome. I think one of the other elements of my why that I didn't say is that I desire to have a space that is accessible and that y'all can experience this sense of purpose and identity, in a way that's accessible, where it's donation based. You can come in, and if you can make it every week, awesome. Would love to have you there consistently to have your awesome energy in the space and your love and to continue to encourage you into your purpose. You don't have to come and you don't have to donate. If money's a struggle, that's okay. I know what that's like. I've gone through a lot of financial struggles. And so don't worry about the money. Just get in the room. And so the breath work is going to be what we do every week on Monday nights. And then we'll have community time. We'll have time to chat and to encourage one another as well, which is going to be epic. So I'm really excited about that. So Christian breathwork, what is it? It's a scientifically backed, God-centered breathwork method designed to strengthen the mind, heal the nervous system, and promote purpose-filled living. So again, coming back to that purpose, but it's about mind, body, and also spirit. So strengthening the mind, healing the nervous system, and promoting purpose-filled living. So I noticed that, especially in faith-based communities, not a lot of people right now have healthy nervous systems. Paul, I believe it is, says that your body is a temple where that houses the Holy Spirit, that houses God. So you have this amazing body that is fearfully and wonderfully made. And a lot of people don't have healthy bodies and nervous systems. And if you don't have a healthy nervous system, you don't have a healthy brain. And if you don't have a healthy brain, your thought world is really messy. And if your thought world's messy, then you're not acting like the best version of yourself, because your thoughts are so cluttered that you can't live in love and integrity and kindness and goodness and do good in the world, because your mind is all fumbled. And I've been there. That's where I used to live all the time. And so this is a space to heal that nervous system, which will strengthen the mind. And then you can think about purpose. And it reminds me of this client that I had before that I worked with for about 6 months. And I asked her what the impact was. And she said, before I did this work, all I knew was trauma. And that's what happens. We get in survival mode when we experience a lot of trauma, and we're stuck in our old pain and stuck in the old story. We're in the trauma and we can't even think about it. We can't think about our purpose. We're just like, I need to get through today. I need to get to the next drink, or I need to get to Friday. I need to get to the weekend. Like, it's just too much. The pain is too much. So we can't think about purpose. And so I found that when we strengthen the body, we strengthen the nervous system, the mind becomes sharper, and then we can ask ourselves, who do I want to be? So this client was like, before this, all I knew was trauma. And now I get to ask myself, what do I want? And she decided to move from somewhere she lived, I think most of her life, if not all of her life, from Texas to Colorado. And she got the strength and the bravery. And I'm not saying that, I'm not telling you you're going to move. I'm not saying that you're just going to move states if you come to the Christian Breathwork Foundation and come do breathwork with us, or you listen to this podcast. It's not about that. Your purpose is unique again, but she got the strength to do something that she never would have had the capacity to do because the trauma and the noise and the mind was so loud. The pain in the body was so loud that it was like, it's not like, how could I ever think about that? So it's kind of the process: heal the nervous system, strengthen the mind, and promote purpose-filled living. So there's 3 techniques to Christian breathwork, and I've built all of them. They're called fire, water, and earth, and they're inspired by the elements. And you'll have to come to a session to learn how they work. They're amazing. There's an intentional reason that I have 3, which is different than a lot of other breathwork practitioners and breathwork practices. And I'll explain why if you come to a session, which I'd love to have you at. So what are the physical benefits of Christian breathwork? It regulates the nervous system. It improves sleep. It provides relief for chronic pain, improves athletic performance, strengthens your heart rate variability. So that's your heart's adaptability and ability to kind of spike and go up and then come back down safely. It alkalizes and cleans the blood, strengthens the immune, lymphatic, and digestive systems. So that's just physical alone, which is incredible that your breath can do that. And this is substantially backed science that your breath can do that, which is crazy and so cool. What are the mental and emotional benefits? It helps heal anxiety, depression, and OCD, which it helped me with. It heightens focus. It boosts confidence and self-esteem. It helps create new neural pathways. It enhances emotional resilience, and it improves your mood. So you experience more joy and relaxation, which is incredible. What are the spiritual benefits? It increases your sense of purpose, helps you experience authentic community and friendships. That's what this foundation is about, and helps you to practice living in faith over fear, which is a big one. A lot of us are living in fear. The last thing is it strengthens your ability to hear God's voice, which we'll get into more what that is. I'm sure you may have heard that before and think like, how could I hear God's voice? Like, what does that even mean? We'll break that down as time goes on as well, because that's a big one. And we could talk for hours on that and what it means to hear God's voice. The last thing I want to say, those are all the benefits just off the rip. You come to a breathwork session, you're going to start experiencing those benefits, which is incredible. But beyond that, one, I want to say that's not in my own strength. And I don't even believe that's about the breathwork. The breathwork is a tool and a catalyst. But one thing it says in scripture, and I'm paraphrasing here, so there's a principle in scripture that all good things come from God. So I want to name that and say that breathwork is a tool. Even a lot of the nervous system techniques and healing practices that I was doing when I talked about living in Austin are a tool. And they're amazing tools, and they can be really helpful. Working out is a tool. Eating well is a tool. Breathwork is just a tool. And it's one that I found is one of the most powerful in building a connection to God, and also in maintaining that relationship and continuing to nurture that relationship. I do 10 minutes a day every day after my cold shower, and I do my Bible time, and it's how I connect with God. It's invigorating, but it's also a tool, and ultimately all this good comes from God and the unconditional love that God offers us. So it's just a tool, and that tool can be used for great good. God is the ultimate healer. God can do what we can't. If you feel like you're at an edge right now where you're like, I don't have it. I have all this trauma. I have these financial struggles. I have these fears. I'm in this custody battle. I'm going through this breakup. I am struggling with the money, and whatever your battle that you're going through is, I'm having intrusive thoughts all the time. The exciting thing to me and what this foundation is about is that you don't have to do it, that there's a God that loves you unconditionally and wants to help you and wants to guide you and wants to do the heavy lifting. And all you have to really do is say, yes, I'm in. And it's a co-creation. It's a process of working together as a team. Me, you, the community, and God working together to say, how do we live in our purpose? So the last thing I'll say is, what's your true identity? As I talked about earlier, we'll get to the final point. What is your true identity? I believe that your true identity, my dad and I just wrote a book, which I'll talk about as time goes on. We'll be doing some episodes on this. A lot of us are living in the old story. And one of the principles that my dad teaches in his book is that this concept of the veil. And the veil is the identity that we inherit basically, or we're conditioned into. So by our parents and society and the government and social media and movies and media and all that stuff and stories we tell ourselves and traumas we experience, we basically develop an identity that is a false identity, and it's rooted in our pain and it's rooted in old stories. The thing I want to say is, what if those stories were never true? What if those things that you were conditioned to believe were never yours in the first place, or never God's intention for you? And that's the question that we explore when we say, what is my true identity? Well, your true identity, it says in scripture that God knitted you together in your mother's womb, that before heaven and earth, he knew you. Before you were born, he had you in mind. God already knows you. God already knows who you are and knows your purpose and knows what you're called to live out in this life and what it's going to take and what people you're going to need and what tools you're going to need and what resources. He already knows everything that you're going to need and is ready to provide that for you to live out that purpose. And your true identity then is who God created you to be. And to me, I believe that that true identity emanates a lot of, what we would call the fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Your true identity is living in those traits, is living in love and living in purpose. The question then becomes again, what would it be like to live in your true identity? Maybe you feel really far away from that. And if you heard any of my story, as little as 5 years ago, I was very sick. And for 8 years, still, I'm not perfectly healed. I still struggle with chronic pain, nerve pain, numbness, stabbing pains in my body. And I work out, eat well, take care of my body, but I still deal with that adversity, and that suffering is something I have to battle every single day. But I still get out, get my workouts in, and I still am getting to do this podcast right now where we're connecting, which is incredible. And I still get to do Monday night breathwork, and I get to write and have an awesome family, and I'm so blessed. And I still get to take steps toward living in my true identity. And I definitely am not doing it perfect. And I don't believe I ever will in this life. And I think together, this is something that we get to explore: is what is my true identity? How do I live in that? And how do I take steps forward? Which is a refining process. It's something that takes time. It's something that takes daily commitment. It's something that takes patience. It's something that takes compassion. Once you start living in it, though, there's almost no going back, because you start to experience a sense of purpose and aliveness that is so good that you're like, why would I ever go back? And so to me, that's what it's like to live in your true identity. And that's the biggest question we'll be exploring in the foundation: is what is my true identity and how do I live in it? Really, that ends up being, who did God create me to be? How do I live that out? If you're wanting to explore that question, I want to encourage you. If church is hard for you, if God is hard for you, if any of this is triggering for you, if you've struggled with religious people or religion and the rules of it all and the dogma of it all, I get it. That was me. I really get it. And it is hard. And it used to trigger the heck out of me. My entire body would contract at the thought of going into a church building, or, listening to a sermon or hearing anything about the Bible or God. So I want to encourage you, if that's you, this space is for you. This space is for you to explore and to know that you're welcome to the table. All of you is welcome to the table. I said earlier, the Christian Breathwork Foundation is for people of all backgrounds and beliefs. It's a safe space for you to explore, judgment-free zone where you get to come to the table and say, maybe you do struggle with this stuff, and you can just talk about it and say, this is hard for me, but I know that I have a purpose. I know that there's something that I'm meant for more, and I can sense that. And I want to explore that. And I want to be encouraged in that. And I want to encourage you in that, whether it be through this podcast or be through us connecting in person or messaging. Like, please reach out. Go to my Instagram at Zach Campa, reach out. Let's talk about this, because I just love this. And talk just to talk and chat and connect, because building relationships is one of my favorite parts of this journey and this process of building this thing. I've met so many amazing people. So connect with me anytime. Reach out on the platforms that I'm on. We'll be on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. The podcast is going to be on the different platforms, and it's also going to be on YouTube. So look out for this stuff. Look out for meditation, somatic practices, tools that are going to help you practically heal. All of that's coming. But right now, for this moment, just invite you to be kind to yourself and meet yourself with lots of love. And let's actually close out in prayer. Maybe you don't pray a lot, and that's okay if you don't. Prayer is not about talking perfectly or anything or saying the right words. To me, it's just about prayer is just an opportunity to talk to God and let it be kind of messy and just talk like you would talk to a friend who loves you. So I'll say a quick prayer for us. And if you want, you can take a few deep breaths with me just to settle into the present moment, inviting God's presence into this moment. Letting go of the breath. And we'll do 2 more, which we'll get to do lots of breathing together. Let it go, since it is the Christian Breathwork Foundation. And we'll get one more. Letting it go. Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you for this friend of mine who's listening to this podcast episode right now. If they got this far, I thank you for their heart. I thank you for the fact that you knitted them together in their mother's womb. That before heaven and earth, you had them in mind, and that you created them with a purpose and said that that was good. And I pray that as this foundation launches, that anybody that comes to the foundation would feel welcome to the table, that we would step forward and step out in faith, this community, as it starts out, and that whoever's listening to this podcast now would just be encouraged, would feel a sense of love and a sense of joy in the fact that they're alive, and that today, tomorrow, this next year in 2025, they get an opportunity to start fresh and to step one step closer into that purpose that they're called to live in. I pray that we would love big. I pray that we would serve well, that this community and everybody that's a part of this community would just give from their hearts and would be committed to doing good and spreading love in the world, and that we would do it all in your name and for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for staying for prayer. And please reach out if you have any questions, thoughts. Come to Monday Night Breathwork. Check out my Instagram. Check out the link tree that's going to be up soon. It should be up by the time you listen to this podcast. Try the free Breathwork recording. Reach out. This is only the beginning. And yeah, peace and love, my friends, now more than ever.